And gentlemen, welcome to the 808 101 podcast, where we dissect music production and songwriting by bringing in awesome artists and producers and looking at their tracks. My name's Lochana, and I'll be your host for today. And unfortunately, Kanan is unwell. So Kanan, if you're watching, I hope you feel well soon. But I'm really excited today to have Abigail Knudson in the studio with us.
Hello.
Abigail, known as Abby, known as MISSY. Thank you so much for being here with us on the 808 101.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for Anna Lovies and Jeff, who both individually recommended that I talk to Abby as well. So thank you guys. So let's talk about you and what you do. And I'm really excited because I know this is going to be an interesting podcast where we talk about your music and your production, because it's a little different. It's a little it's a different approach to things.
A lot of chaos.
A lot of chaos.
A lot of creativity, and not very formulaic approach.
Chaos is good. So you're a artist, a singer-songwriter, and a self-taught producer.
Yes.
You are classically trained in choral stuff, choir stuff.
I was raised singing in choirs. My mum's a choir director. My dad was a conductor of the same choir. Messy divorce. And yeah, so my upbringing was sort of shrouded in choral music.
Shrouded. Sounds like Star Wars dark side stuff. And you are trained in the cello as well, the art of the cello.
Yes.
That's awesome. And you've worked with the likes of Justin Pilbrough from Element P, Beck Runga, Unchained XL, who's now known as Masbo Q, who I went to uni with. Small
Really?
world. Yeah.
My gosh, it is small.
It's such a small world. So Jeff and I and Hugh, we did engineering together.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at Song Hubs last week with him.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
True. Oh, that's cool. So you
Really
guys worked on a song.
No, I didn't get to get
Right.
to do a room with him, but we can always do outside
100%.
outside of the week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if we were at a dinner party and I asked you how, what do you do? How would you introduce yourself?
I'd say, hello, my name is either Abby or Missy. Choose your preference.
Oh, okay.
Choose your poison.
Ooh.
And I am a singer, producer, songwriter. Pretty close to what you just said, to be honest.
What do you do? Because I know you do. You work on your own stuff as Missy, and then you also work with other artists as well.
Yeah.
Tell me about the work that you do with other artists.
So I basically, in order to expand my horizons, my understanding of production, and I love to work with artists because it's such a exciting challenge to sort of get into the mind and see the soul of another human being and try to help them translate to what they want musically into reality. So one of the reasons I got into production was because of my experience struggling as an artist trying to work with producers.
Right.
I struggled to sort of communicate and be understood and be heard and listened to. So that's sort of one of the reasons I really wanted to give production a go, because I felt like I could really listen to people and really try and hear what they wanted. So, I work with a multitude of artists. I predominantly do artist development. So I'll take sort of new artists on board and I'll say, hey, here's lots of tools. If you want, I'll show you how to use Logic. If you want, I'll just boost your confidence. I'll give you like mic technique lessons. I'll help you with your singing. I'll help you with everything. So I really love doing that kind of thing as well. So a little bit of artist development is where I come from, a lot of listening, and that's sort of roughly give you a good idea of what I do.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you talked about it as an art of listening, because you're right, it can be quite frustrating when you're in the studio and you're trying to communicate, no, but I need that kind of sound, but they're not, really hearing you out. So that's wonderful that you've taken that approach. I think it's very much needed, to be fair.
It is, but it's especially because this is not your project, and I think a lot of producers sort of forget that, because I guess in a way you are responsible for making a lot of the sounds and sort of putting it together. I think a lot of people sort of get a little bit carried away and find it can be a sort of a battle between what you think is right and what the artist thinks is right. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of the time you do have to step back and assess, all right, is this objectively the right choice, or is this personal preference? Is this my ego getting in the way? And try and work as honestly with the artist as you can. I always try and communicate to artists that I work with, all right, if I don't like an idea, I'm going to explain to you why I don't like it. But if you like it, fight for it. And give me a really good explanation as to why it's important.
Yeah.
And then we can really discuss,
Yeah.
openly and honestly, okay, is this the right move? Don't just cave in
Yeah.
and go, oh, okay, no, the producer said no.
Because I've heard of stories where an artist will be working with a producer and the artist would want like a certain sound. So for example, I can't remember where I heard this, but DJ Jazzy Jeff wanted way more punch in the kick for, I think it was like one of the tracks, I can't remember which one, might have been Boom, Shake, Shake, Shake the Room. and he knew that the future of these tracks would be listened in cars with like the bass pumping, right? And he wanted way more, but the producer was like, nah, let's reel it back. And now I think he's like, whenever he hears it, he always just feels really bad that it's not as pumping.
See, that's not what you want.
That's not what you want,
You
right?
never want to do a track for someone with someone and have them listen back to it and feel disappointed. Like, that is my worst nightmare.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not me doing my job. That's me letting someone down.
Yeah, 100%. So you learned the art so that you could be able to better express yourself as an artist. So let's talk about MISSY. So when did you start to go down the road of creating yourself as an artist and MISSY? Tell me the story of how that got created.
Well, I initially released under my own name, Abigail Knudson, because it took me a long time to figure out a name.
Yeah, it's tough.
But
it's tough.
A character in my writing, a character kept popping up called MISSY, and
okay.
Because the name was so reoccurring and this person was so reoccurring, I sort of started to lean towards it and sort of, I feel like MISSY needs to be a little bit of a character, a little bit of a persona, and I'm gradually leading even more into that because I find it's really helpful to express the subject matter that I delve into. If it's not you, because you're not always writing about you, so you need to have a persona. But basically, I started out in GarageBand. I think
that's all good. I still use GarageBand on my iPhone.
Yeah,
I mean, it's great.
It's fine.
Fantastic.
It works.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I'm very fond of the first sort of demos that I made. I think it was in high school that I obviously. The school I went to had GarageBand, and I think part of the music class was, okay, can you make something on GarageBand?
Yeah.
So I had no idea what MIDI was, and I remember I physically dragged a keyboard in front of the computer and recorded this output of the keyboard through the iMac speaker.
Yeah. Oh, wait, you mic'd the speaker?
No,
Oh, right.
no, just turned it up and like moved the computer closer to record it. So,
Yeah.
wow, we've come so far.
Oh, totally.
But at that stage, I really had no interest in pursuing music or writing music. But that's sort of, I guess, the first introduction that I had to writing.
Yeah.
But later on, I think after I started trying to really pursue an artist career, and I started trying to save money to work with producers, and I think there was this gradual sense of, oh, no one really understands what I want. I've got GarageBand on my computer. I can start trying to make something to try and explain what I mean, because nobody's really getting it. And then that sort of progressed to a point where the demos were not amazing, but they were quite good.
Yeah.
Quite good. Like, what they expressed what I really wanted.
Yeah. The core of it was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it really took me moving up to Auckland, sort of throw everything away. Okay, yep. I gave myself a challenge of producing an album for myself. Can you do it? That you're going to teach yourself this. You're going to take it seriously. And it's messy. The mix is terrible, but I'm so proud of it. And that was sort of what set me off onto a trajectory.
Yeah. And that was your first EP? Or was it an album?
No, it was an album.
Oh, it was an album, right. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is before the current one.
Yeah.
It's the Strange EP.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, okay.
So I have pulled it. I've hidden it from the internet.
Oh, okay.
But
I see.
I think you can find it somewhere in some corner. It's probably on
okay.
SoundCloud somewhere or Bandcamp. But
Right.
yeah, I moved up here. I performed some gigs. The sound engineer bumped into me and was like, "Did you actually make all that stuff yourself? What's your door?" I was like, "Logic." And they're like, "Okay, come into the studio."
Yeah.
And I was still at that point really self-conscious about my production, and they basically asked for my splits,
Yeah.
played around with it, enhanced it, and I was like,
What are splits?
just like when you export all of the individual
Right,
audio files
okay, got it.
out of your Logic session,
Got it. Oh,
or
cool.
any session. Sorry.
Oh, right. Sweet.
So there's stems, which is basically when you you can kind of pop multiple things together. So a stem might be all the drums or all the percussion
Okay.
bits together.
That's
Splits
interesting.
is everything on its own.
I didn't know that. So for those of you who don't know, we've actually got Abby's screen that we'll be switching to. So Simon, if you could switch to that to show the audience the crazy, chaotic.
Lots of bright colours.
Lots of bright colors. And this is the track that we'll be talking about today off your Strange EP. It's called Kings. And when I heard it, I immediately was intrigued. I was like, whoa, this is interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. So without further ado, I think we should listen to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I just hit?
So are we ready to hit play? So let's do it. Boom. Here we go.
Here you are, the unmixed.
This is this is the chorus that we're listening to?
Sure.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. Whatever part you want us to listen to it. Yes.
Tired of fighting, but you got me backing back to hell. Tired of liars, but you get me worked up so well. You said tired of fighting, we're tired of fighting. The barrel of a camera.
The roll cameras bit just before the bridge. Or was it roll cameras or look down the barrel of the camera?
Through the barrel of a camera.
Through the barrel of the camera. Oh, cool. Can we actually listen to the introduction as well? I really love how this song builds from the start. So we're just going to listen to the intro as well. I love this part because it sounds like some sort of like radio war chant kind of thing.
Yes. Yes.
We're all faking, feigning there's a mystery.
Yeah.
There goes my heart
Yeah.
to be.
That is so cool. It's like a mix of So there's some Gregorian chant stuff in there. There's like some sort of 8-bit harpsichord thing going on, and like a machine gun sort of sound, like a
Yep. Sort of, which is just a snare.
Oh, yeah.
But I really wanted, so the combination of this sort of foreign sounding, nondescript chanting, and then the Game Boy sort of up, and the machine gun. They're all sort of meant to reference the subject matter, which is based around propaganda and war propaganda.
Right.
Which, the song's totally death of the author, if that's what you believe in. Like, if it means something else to somebody else, that's totally fine. That's what I believe in. I believe that whatever I intended it to mean is totally not important. But yeah.
What did you intend it for it to mean, or do you want to leave that a mystery?
Well, I mean, I can talk about what I was trying to discuss, which is simply that there's been a recurring theme of reasons to go into war that sort of turn out to not really be
A good enough reason.
or just even true.
Yeah. And so why is it called Kings? Is it in reference to the leaders that are...
Well, the reason it's called Kings is because initially a lyric that I wrote was "All seemed fair in love and war when the kings were here," which, but it didn't really end up fitting into the final thing. But that's still kind of, I felt like Kings sort of encompassed the whole song.
Got it. Awesome. How then did this song start? What was step one? What was the seed of the song?
Okay.
And then talk us through the process.
Okay.
Oh, we're getting into
Let's
it now.
stretch.
Let's stretch. Let's do some yoga, and then there we go.
Okay, so the way that the song was written is really not the way I usually write, but I am a firm believer in putting yourself in situations where you are challenged and you are really uncomfortable, and it forces you to, I guess, what's the fight or fly? Fight or flee?
Oh, yeah.
Fight or flight?
The fight or flight response triggers your, I think, amygdala, which is the part of the brain that contains the fight or flight. You think you're in danger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love
you're
that.
being chased by like cheetahs while you're writing the song. Yeah.
Well, not quite.
Yeah.
But
So before we get into that though, how is it that you usually write?
Okay.
So that people have a contrast.
The most, because there's not always a set way of writing ever, because that's wrong. You should never have a set way of writing.
Yeah.
But the most frequent way, my sort of go-to, my fallback way of writing is to sort of be alone in the room. This is open with the production session, and I'm dabbling on writing the vocal parts at the same time as moving around the production to kind of fit in with the melodic vocal ideas. So it's all very much together, and I think that really helps me kind of make everything talk to each other in a way.
Yeah.
So
I
like
see.
there was a little bit of that still in this, because I had to go back and kind of tidy up the session because of the way it was written, which we'll get into
The tidying
later.
up, yeah.
But there's a little bit of sort of like there's a vocal part, something, and then the vocal stops and the music responds with like
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm really, really fond of.
Like a call and response type.
I love it.
thing.
Yeah, I love it. It's simple but really, really effective and
effective,
stimulating. So yeah, usually alone in my wee hovel somewhere.
In your wee hovel.
Yeah, my wee hovel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my standard way of writing. The way this was written was I was called in to produce another artist at a studio, and that artist had to postpone, I think, for about an hour and a half. And I had been wanting to write a session where I had a short time limit, other people in the room to kind of make me feel like I had to get stuff done. And I wanted to put myself under pressure, but I've been putting it off.
Yeah.
And so it opened up a a space for me to actually, okay, let's try this out, see if it works. So I asked the studio, hey, is it okay if I use the studio for the hour and a half before the artist arrives, and I've got a song to record. Yep,
But
that
you
was fine.
didn't.
No, I didn't. So two engineers came in because there was an assistant, and I was like, and they're like, okay, what are we recording today? And I was like, yeah, I've got to quickly write it.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to waste their time, so I threw together the weirdest beat. I chatted to the engineer first, and I said, give me a theme. And they're just like, oh my God, Abby's insane again. She's doing something crazy again.
Yeah.
And he's like, Kings. And I was like, oh, perfect. Because I'd
Wow.
already written that choral piece in a weird language, and I had been wanting to, I guess, sample it in a piece of music about this concept that I just talked to you about. I've
Right.
been wanting. I was like, okay, perfect. I've already got the concept. That's great.
And that choral
Sample it.
piece, we heard it in the track, and I guess we'll get into it later
Yeah, I
about
can play.
what that looks
I can
like.
play
Yeah,
the
definitely.
full original thing because
Yeah.
it's longish. We can play half of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd written that. It's in a phone Latin kind of language, and I was watching. I was playing the video game Oblivion at the time, so
Right.
there's the word "scriva" in it. It's
Uh-huh.
silly, but I was like, perfect. There's like this ominous, constructed presence, because of course, like a lot of the propaganda that I'm talking about is, constructed. You're not hearing like you're not really hearing about a nation as it really is, about the people as they are. You're just hearing like this made up version. Anyway, we'll get into the nutty conspiracy
Can't
lady
wait.
stuff later. Or we won't actually, probably. Okay, where was I? All
On
right.
the 808 101 Conspiracy Edition.
Okay, so he was like Kings. I was like, perfect. Grabbed my choral sample, threw it in Serato, because I really like just the way it pitches stuff, and also I like the way it affects the sound. I like the artifacts it creates.
Serato as a tool? 'Cause
Serato sample.
Serato
Yeah.
sample, right. I don't know much. I don't know much about the tools. I just know about the company. But we'll get into that later. Definitely would love to go into what are the tools that you use. So you put it in Serato sample.
Okay. Yep. Threw some drum samples in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, it's a mess. Bounced that out and jumped. I think sorry, that was loud. I think it took about 30 minutes, I think, to make the beat. It was really messy.
Right.
I bounced it out. They were going, oh, crazy lady.
Crazy.
And yeah, threw it in the Pro Tools session. Pro
Pro Tools?
Tools
I heard you say
session.
produce session.
Produce.
In the produce
Yeah,
section.
in the produce section with
Yeah.
the bananas, where I belong. And the engineer, who was Rich Bryan, really, really great vocal producer, was like, oh, okay. I jumped in the booth, and they're like, okay, what's this? How's the song go? I was like, haven't written it yet. And just began singing. And actually, the line, the first line, we're all crazy. It's all improvised.
Really?
And he was still adjusting like the compressor settings
What?
as I started singing, and he was all like, and we'll get into this later, because I believe that there's something really pure and special about demo recordings.
Yes.
We
Yes.
kind of had to just account for that,
Yeah.
and make sure that you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, because it was the right take, and it worked. The energy was right. I really believe in like the purity of demo recording. So
Yeah.
and I improvised a bit. We listened, and there were some sort of arrangement things we had to do because the beat was so thrown together.
Creating some space, making
Yeah. I was like, this section here where it goes, Scrivado.
That's the start? Oh, no, the bridge.
Yeah. Can you get rid of that?
Yeah.
I think initially we got rid of that. The chorus, which I'll quickly.
Fighting, but you got me picking next to head.
So the Adim Garguswala Ditama just sort of happened once.
Wow.
So we sort of were like, okay, let's make that the chorus. Let's double that bit. Yeah.
Ah, so cool.
So it was all on the spot, and then we finished just in time, and the artist arrived, and we were all like, "Oh,
An
that
hour
went-
and a half.
Yeah, yeah. It would have probably been just under that because we would have had to finish it. But
Holy.
obviously, I had a lot of homework to do afterwards,
Yeah.
and so I've got the recording we did during that time, and then we went back and we added more layers on the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of nice harmonies and the "But you got me packing bags to hell." I can't make it. And then we re-sang the Skriva-dumt
Right.
choral section
Got
over
it.
top of my sample.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So an hour and a half, the essential core of it was written, and I guess for the
Mhm.
producers, the budding young bedroom producers that are listening, not the whole thing doesn't get done in an hour and a half, right? It's,
No
it's
way.
the core of it. It's just like when Ed Sheeran talked about how he made Shape of You on Vice. They said an hour and a half as well, but it was the core of it, right? The core essence. So you wrote the lyrics, you essentially had the sections
Mhm.
figured out, and then
the beat was just whatever it was
Yeah.
cut out as audio.
right.
So I had to go back and structure it
Yeah.
later, which was, that's lug.
Mm.
That's lug.
That's the yeah.
Oh, and I also had to fix it because it was just, oof.
Yeah, but that's
But,
cool. That's amazing. So let's then get deep dive into the chants because I love this
Great.
element of the track. So you wrote a
Okay, so
cha-
I wrote a weird choral thing because I just like doing things that are weird.
yeah,
I thought
and
it would
with
be
your
fun.
choral background, it all came together. Cool.
And I didn't think it was nice enough for me to just have as a choral piece. I was like, that's a sample,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So I'll just turn down this because I think it's a little bit louder. Let's hit it.
Aderici pastei, aderici pastei, adi sancrius malefitawatei, aderici pastei, pastei,
You can even hear my click if you listen.
Oh, the click track.
aderici pastei.
My high frequencies are probably gone, so I can't hear it.
Audience is probably like, where's the beat?
If they if they tuned in right now,
They'll be like, this is strange and cultish.
welcome to the Gregorian Chant podcast, ladies and gentlemen. So this is Latin.
No, I call it faux Latin.
Okay.
I have arranged a piece in Latin before.
Hey, so this is the
Yes.
Bridge.
This is it. Scriva gum. I love that bass line. Gale. Dimagar guswala. Anyway, and it goes on.
Yeah.
It goes on.
Okay.
And it
So-
gets more chaotic.
It gets
and
more
all the parts start intertangling with each other.
Got
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that you sampled,
Mm-hmm.
and then it made it into what parts of it?
So it's in the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the intro, and it weaves
Intro.
its way in and out of the verses,
Yeah, got it.
and obviously the outro as well. So it's pretty integral, I guess, to the piece.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think so. This was written early last year,
Mhm.
I think. So the way that I was writing at the time, the way I was producing at the time, I was really overcompensating for my lack of plugins and with making sure that I was sampling sort of my own pieces that I'd written, and yeah, I use samples to sort of add textural depth
Right.
to the track, maybe to sort of compensate for elements that it was I felt like it was lacking.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So you played to your strengths there with sampling and choral singing.
Well, yeah, I just used my creative ideas as like the core central element of my production, I guess,
Got it.
as opposed to, having a nice sounding bass.
Yeah. No, 100%. Oh, that's super cool. And definitely would love to go a little bit more into how you think about core recording, because I you told me a little bit earlier about how there's the traditional way, which is you record everything perfectly, then you
Yeah.
auto-tune it perfectly, whereas you've kind of taken a different approach now. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
I'm leaning more and more. Oh, obviously, this is a little bit older, but these days, when it comes to vocal recording and vocal layering, I'm really moving away from auto-tune.
Mhm.
I think that it first of all, you can lose a lot of the texture of the voice,
Right.
just off the bat.
Mm.
It also prevents either you or the artist from being as critical of their vocal performance because it's perfect. It's
Yeah.
tuned.
Yeah.
So there's that. I find that to be a real bonus. If you even maybe leave tuning off while you are writing and recording,
Mhm.
and then only once you've sort of finished that part of the process, you could maybe tune the lead here and there.
Yeah.
But when it comes to layering, not using auto-tune just really thickens out the layers, because we sort of use tuning to suck all the layers in together,
Mhm.
to kind of tighten them and make them sound really slick.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I think, music these days, we're looking for, widespread,
Mm.
thick textures. You just want to hear all the husk or the air in your ears. You want it to be as widespread as possible. So I think with the kind of music that I typically like to listen to and what I'm drawn towards, I would avoid autotune. I mean, a lot of producers these days are tuning all the BVs and then pitching them up and down a couple of cents here, like either side,
Yeah.
to try and create that spread. But
Yeah.
that's a lot of extra work,
Yeah.
and you're still deadening the vocal to an extent. You're still taking away a little bit of texture because, I mean, if you have a really high quality auto-tune plugin, then maybe you're not losing as much. But
Mhm.
yeah.
But you do lose that texture, and it becomes this kind of robotic sort of artificial sound.
Yeah.
Sounds perfect in terms of like the harmonic component, but yeah, you lose that organic
Exactly.
quality.
I mean, the last 3 days of last week,
Mm-hmm.
tracking with artists, I was just sort of like, nope, we're abandoning them. We're losing this completely.
Yeah.
We're not doing it.
And I suppose if you get rid of it, then you become more conscious of the vocal performance, because it's not
Exactly.
just pitch.
Yeah,
It's
and we started
how you-
emotion.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't believe you in this take. The artist would listen back to something and say, hey, I'm not feeling this.
Yeah.
And I feel like at the end of the day, I'm so much happier with those performances and those recordings than other ones where I've put,
Yeah, like fix it in post.
fix it in post.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you do have to, absolutely.
Time constraints.
Time constraints, exhaustion,
Mm.
etc. But yeah,
But it's worth taking that time.
if you can get away with it, if they're an awesome vocalist,
Yeah.
like why? If they can sing it, then
No, 100%.
yeah.
I very much prefer to try and get the emotional quality right first, and anyone who's recorded with me will know that. AJ Arjun will know that.
Yeah.
I ask for 1,000,000 takes until I'm happy with the emotional quality, and then once we get it, it's like, oh, okay, it's good we waited. It's good
Good.
we did this, right? And then if we need to fix a few things, sure we do. But
I mean, even if another really good way I find of getting like the right take, sit down, you talk to them for 40 minutes
okay,
about everything. They warm up, they do
right.
4 or 5 takes, and during the take, oh God, and this is so untreated and so like wrong in a lot of the ways, you're in the room with them and you have them sing to you, like, tell me the story, I
Mm.
want to know it. And that, I feel like that fast tracks it. If they're comfortable with it,
Right.
then that really fast tracks. You don't have to do 1,000,000 takes and both get stressed. But sometimes you do. It's totally dependent on the situation.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can get away with creating a mood and creating like perform this to me, tell me this story. And it really, really, really works.
I've never heard of this side of producing and production being talked about before. The emotional side.
I
of it.
wonder if it's, don't want to play the gender card, but I
Yeah.
wonder if that I really look at music as an emotional thing.
For
So
sure.
I really question why we don't treat the recording process as emotional as well. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we've got to do all the correct compression settings.
Yeah, yeah.
and rah, rah, rah.
Compression ratio.
Your EQ is shit. But,
Do you say that? Your IQ
I
was
say
shut
that to myself
Oh, yeah.
a lot.
in that voice.
And yeah, my preferred mixing engineer quite often says that kick is shit. But
No,
yeah.
no.
you
I
do
get
need
you.
all that stuff. You need the clinical stuff, but it should.
Yeah.
When working with artists, it doesn't always really end up with the best results.
Mhm.
Treating them and their music as clinical, because they're, at the end of the day, you're working on something that's coming from their soul.
Yeah.
So if you make them feel as gratified and as understood as possible, then it only can enhance the process. It's never going to be detrimental if you're we're on the same page. That was beautiful. What an experience. I also really believe in making sure, this is all seems like it has nothing to do with production, but it does. I really believe in creating a memory out of the day. So that they can, you want them to remember the session. Oh yeah, that was the day that we took off our shoes and made claps with it by hitting our shoes together.
Yeah.
And it was smelly but good.
Yeah.
So I believe in involving them in some aspect of the recording, so that you have fun together. And also it all it does is create an environment. Well, fun. All fun does is create an environment where you're uplifted and suddenly, I have this idea, because we're both having fun, and then you end up on this trajectory to high heaven, and things just get cooler and cooler, and you get more and more excited. So, yeah.
I mean, creativity happens in the context of play, right?
Exactly.
And what is play but yes, it's time boxed, but you don't judge what's being born. And John Cleese has a really cool talk about, I don't know if you've seen it, about the two modes of creativity. He says that you can't teach someone to be creative, but you can tell them how to get into that state. And it's one is the open state of mind, which is you say from here to here we're going to be in a state of play. No judgment of what comes out.
Yep.
Safe space, whatever, even if it's dumb. And then after that, you get into work mode, which is a closed mind state. You get the work done. You do this EQ or shut, this kick or shut.
Yep.
You fix the cook.
Yep, you fix the kick.
Fix that
Oh,
cook.
God, delete.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when you're in that playful state, just magic happens,
Yeah.
right? And no, you're totally right. It needs to be memorable. And
Yeah, I'm also just if there's more than one person in the room, at some point, just to even if you don't end up using it, and this goes back into making sure that your vocal layers have heaps of texture in them and are as wide and big as possible. Have yourself, the artist, whoever else is around, stand around the mic, even if they can't sing, it's okay, and sing through the part and create a chant together.
wow.
You may not use it, but that's a nice layer.
yeah, no, 100%. Oh, that's cool. And it makes for a great story afterwards, right?
Yeah, we had fun, and
Yeah.
they usually film it and are giddy with laughter, and then after that,
Yeah.
you can sort of go, okay, now, all right, now we're switching modes all of a sudden.
Yeah, now it's work
We've peaked.
mode. yeah, exactly. So let's talk about, this is the 808 101, so we do need to talk about bass and 808s at some point. So,
We were talking.
which we didn't do last time. But let's talk about the bass in this track, because I know there's an
yeah.
interesting story. So for those of you out there, I want you to try and guess how this bass sound was made. So can we just listen to, is it possible to just listen to the bass?
Want to. There's a couple of different bass instruments in here,
Uh-huh.
but I know which one you want to listen
Yeah.
to.
Definitely.
Oh, you can't look at this thing. There's a giveaway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, don't switch to the thing, Simon, because it's going to give away. Because I want people to guess, So how is that made? So tell us. What is that?
Okay,
It's not an 808.
it's not. No way.
Yeah.
So first of all, we have to quickly talk about. This leads back into the concept, which is propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed a quote about the media and how it affects people.
Yeah.
Ended up finding a Paul Holmes farewell speech.
Right.
And he said the line from through the barrel of the camera and into your living room. And I was like, wow, perfect. Love that. Sampled him, popped him in the outro of the track. I was pitching him down. I just thought, oh my gosh, he's got such a gorgeous timbre. And I was struggling with the bass of this track anyway.
Right.
I was like, everything's wrong. So I was like, you know what, whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm at the end of my rope. I'm going to make a bass from Paul Holmes. And
Bass from Paul Holmes.
I think once you've done a little bit of sampling, or not a little bit, once you've sampled a lot, you sort of get a spidey tingle when you hear something and you know it's going to be a good sample. So
Yes.
pitched him down, chopped it up, basically EQ'd it so that there was an attack sound, compressed it, ran it through a bass amp, and yeah, there's a sort of 808 sound.
808 Paul Holmes.
So yeah, it's just like a bit of a boost around 500, so that it sounded like a little bit clicky.
That kind of
Yeah.
sound.
You can still hear his vocal timbre when it's soloed, but
Right.
basically when it's all together,
Mm-hmm.
all you really hear is the attack and the sub.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why I would never have ever guessed it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Some people say never solo an instrument and work on it as well.
Right.
Have you heard that one?
I've heard, people say you need to listen to it within the mix.
Yeah.
And then I've heard some other people say, well, actually, no, you do need a bit of time just to work on it.
Yeah, I
on
think
its
it's.
own.
I feel like it's a little bit of both.
It's a bit of both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you if you work, I mean, also everyone has their own methodology, right? That
100%.
that they are really really comfortable with.
Yeah.
And
Just quickly, I think I should have been looking at this a while ago, but Rodney Fisher asks, can we ask questions? And the answer is yes, Rodney, you can ask questions. But that might have been quite a while ago. So yes, Rodney, fire. Anyone have any questions? Please feel free to fire away. Oh, sample that.
yeah, absolutely. I've made a really cool beat out of just glass clinking.
Ah.
Someone gave me some champagne, and I was like, well, I can't just drink this, right?
Yeah.
You've got to the fizz when you pop. You've got to pop off the cork, record that. You've got to make a full beat. That's great.
That is so cool. And that, I think, brings on to the next topic, which is, I guess we talked a little bit about, before we, this morning we talked about, like, your spice rack, if you will, of tools.
Yeah.
And the constraints that you worked within. Talk to me about how that's evolved over time, because I know you started off talking about how you kind of had to overcompensate for what you didn't have.
Yeah.
And then sort of you evolved over time. Tell me about that journey.
When I first started production, I was a beginner.
Mm-hmm. As we all are.
A,
Yeah,
B,
as
C,
we all
D.
are. Yeah.
So I just basically had Logic and that's it. No plugins. And I really, really wanted to do production. I really wanted to work with artists just straight off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? I mean, that's terrifying. That's horrible. But that was going to be the first thing I did. Okay, work with an artist.
Yeah.
I'll produce your music. Yes, label. I will be a yes. So I put myself in that situation, and so I was overcompensating for the fact that I only really had Logic stock plugins,
Mm-hmm.
and over time, I have developed like a lot of love for Logic stock plugins. They're not my only thing anymore. I've invested in some plugins, but I would use creativity as my main tool in my producer kit.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever stock plugin came with, for example, I think this track, the arpeggiated sort of Game Boy sound.
Yeah, can we hear that just on...
yeah.
huh?
No, that's not it. Here it is. This one. Yeah. That one.
And was that a stock?
Yeah, so
Plugin.
that was the sine wave from XS
Right.
and run through, I think, an amp, because
Mhm.
always, why not? And bit crusher, and I just lowered the bit depth
Right.
and like downsampled it, and it kind of broke it up and created that 8-bit kind of sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can kind of use anything. This is one of the rare cases where it did exactly what I wanted and sounded right.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the time I would be using these kind of crap plugins, but sort of hoping for something to not go exactly as I'd planned, because I find that really stimulating. Like,
Yeah.
for example, one of my favorite plugins is Vocal Transformer.
Well, what does that do? Because I don't use Logic,
It's
so.
just does formant shifting,
Right.
pitch shifting.
Yeah.
It's just a pitch plugin on Logic, stock one.
Mhm.
But it creates a lot of digital artifacts that can be really fun to play around with. Like, it really struggles sometimes.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Mm.
Like, for example, once I made... I just ran an 808 through the Vocal Transformer over and over again till it was so broken up and so artifacted that it sounded like just the craziest thing you'd ever heard.
Right.
And it was, yeah, that's what I love about some of these, I guess, that's what I love about limiting yourself, because you're forced to think outside the box to kind of make it work.
Yeah.
So I was absolutely overcompensating for my lack of fancy plugins.
But I guess that's such a good technique to hone at an early stage of your career, because that means you're going to carry that through to the rest of your career. When you get these awesome expensive plugins, you're still going to like push the edge case a little bit. And that's how unique sounds are created. That's how like an artist's unique sound is created, is by pushing it and finding the crevices and corners of what these plugins probably don't get intended for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But still, once again, I still do fall back on my handy dandy like crap budget plugins.
Crap budget plugins.
They don't quite do what you want them to do, because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't want what you think you want, and you want to hear maybe what
Yeah.
what could go wrong, because it might be so right.
No, 100%. Like, I once was driving in the car listening to this crappy recording from voice notes that I made, and something messed up with my car where when I was Bluetoothing the audio, it thought it was a phone call. And so it wasn't playing the perfect audio. It was playing my guitar and singing recording as if it was like a crappy phone call.
Yeah.
But then I heard these weird overtones that wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, like
If
just
it-
random harmonics popping out.
Random
of it.
digital
Yeah.
harmonics. And I was like, oh, it's almost like there was a guitar part in there that I didn't know about.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh, I'm going to use that. And,
Perfect.
and
yeah, it's
add it
written.
as-
It's
yeah.
written something for you.
Exactly.
It's so handy. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. It's inspiring.
100%. So what are so you started off with stock plugins. What are some of the plugins that you've kind of come to acquire over time? Because obviously, as you are constraining yourself, you're then being very conscious of what you're going to purchase, right?
Yeah, and also you're feeling very, very self-conscious about the fact that you are that limited.
Mm.
So one of the most important things that I have in my kit now is LA scoring strings, and that's sort of because of my, I guess, classical approach. I felt really, really down that I didn't have the ability to kind of
Express
write
that.
beautiful orchestral things and have it not sound so yeah. I mean, to an extent I was recording myself trying to play the cello and layering that in with the stock Logic stuff to try and make it sound like an orchestra, but that doesn't work. I really don't think you can get away with multi-tracking string instruments as much as people think you do.
I've wondered about this.
You need different instruments, you need different positionings, you need probably different mics. That's what I believe. And then you also probably need to layer it in with real stuff. So that's sort of what I'm doing now, is like, then you need to layer it in with a VST as well, just to thicken it out.
Right.
You can't really make an orchestral sound out of one player, because they don't necessarily phase, but there's not enough, I guess, variation.
I guess it's the same with vocals, right? Like choral choir stuff, right?
Yeah,
Same
yeah.
approach.
I mean, yeah. And sometimes string players, like you ask them, hey, your vibrato is very consistently the same, and they're all syncing up. So to be one big, can you try adjusting your vibrato? And string players, because I think your classical upbringings make people a little bit more reserved when it comes to improvisation, so it doesn't always work, especially if that's just your technique. So it's just easier to have, if they have an extra violin or if you've got a different mic, move them around the room. Just try other things. Don't have 4 multi-tracks of one person in the same spot doing the same thing, because it's going to sound like that.
yeah, exactly. Totally true. I think I'd love to hear a bit more. I've got in my notes written down embracing working with others, because we talked about that.
Oh, yeah.
And that is something that you we briefly touched on earlier. But tell me a little bit about your working style in working with other people and how it leads to creativity.
Okay, so, well, not just creativity, but improvement as a musician and as a producer and as everything.
Yeah.
I firmly believe in collaboration. When it comes to my MISSY project, the final stage is always to take it to a mixing engineer. I'm not sure if that will change going forward, but I find it so important to take it to another set of ears and at least play it to someone I respect, another producer. Because, first of all, another person in the room, you're suddenly hyper aware of everything, and you'll notice issues that maybe you didn't before. Oh God, that's embarrassing. I didn't really like that part. I hope they didn't think it was bad too.
The kicker shot.
Yeah, it makes you more aware
Yeah.
of your music, but also they have a completely different background and experience, and they'll say things like the kick is shit, which is probably very helpful. So part of my process is taking this track, my tracks, to mixing engineers. My favourites are Rich Brian and Luke Berryman.
Rich Brian and Luke
Different,
Berryman.
and everybody has their different approach to mixing as well. So you've got to be really selective because they all have a very different style. Richard's approach is very clean and very, well, let's sterilize this and then make it huge, which is perfect for something as chaotic and crazy as my music. And Luke's very creative mixer, so you have to be prepared for it to sound different and not get really upset. No, it's usually amazing, so you wouldn't get upset. Don't get demoitis.
Demoitis?
Demoitis.
What's that?
That's when you've heard your original version so many times that you can't change a thing and you become like just stuck.
Yeah, and that is
You can't
why you
progress.
need to show it to other
Absolutely.
ears. Show it to others.
And okay, my other philosophy, which a lot of I'm sure I'll get a little bit of hate for, it's you almost can't produce yourself.
Right.
It's very hard to. So in order to help yourself produce yourself, if that makes any sense, you need to take it to another set of ears, in this case a mixing engineer. He puts it up, pieces it back together, and suddenly you hear it assembled slightly differently, and that changes your perspective on the music, and suddenly, oh, all right, I hear this now as a producer. I'm no longer in the writing process. This sounds totally different. Then you can make more objective decisions because, and you can say, okay, well, this is a perfect song, and except for that horrible, weird rattle in there, get rid of that.
Did that happen with Kings?
Yeah, there were a few moments in Kings that.
Can you give us an example? From memory.
Well, first off, the kick was shit, I think.
So this time the kick was definitely shit.
Definitely shit.
Right, okay.
But towards the end, I just so minimal, but so important. It's that 5% that really enhances it, and you
Totally.
need it.
Yeah.
Like, this is what transforms the piece from being like great to being like, okay, I'm really, really happy with this because
Yeah.
I've had another person help me kind of see a new perspective. Got rid of the kick in this kind of outro towards the bridge,
Mm-hmm.
so that when the bridge hit, it had more impact. So in this version, there's still a kick heading towards the bridge, and it's a little bit too hype still.
Right. Got it. Because the bridge in your one is quite a hype kind
Yep.
of like it's almost like a breakdown, like
Mhm.
an EDM breakdown type thing,
Yep.
right?
And the other thing was that midway through the bridge, everything was cut up.
Right. Yeah.
So that's not in this version.
Ah.
But, I feel like that's such a cool moment.
Yeah,
that wouldn't have
100%.
happened if we hadn't, if I had tried to mix this myself.
Totally. And
If I'd not been put into a room with someone and had to assess everything
yeah.
with another pair of eyes.
And there's sometimes when instinctively you know that there's something missing, but you can't quite figure it out. And then someone else comes in and then they figure it out. Like for my first guest that I had, Arjun, one of his producer friends sat down with him for 4 hours and just listened to the track again and again, and he added one thing and it made all the difference in
Yeah,
the world. It's literally this little
exactly.
harmony line, like
But that's
Melody line,
really,
yeah.
really important.
yeah,
And I think
it made the biggest difference.
Yeah, and I think we get so insular, we get so embarrassed. We really want to say, look, this is all me.
Yeah.
But if we're open to collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
then we can really, really elevate what we're doing. So I haven't even answered your question at all.
No, I think we got into, collaboration is key, right?
Okay, so-
Having a different set of ears.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So not just that, though. You should try and work with people that, in a normal situation, you feel intimidated by.
Oh,
You
okay.
want to work with people that you could learn from. You want to convince those people to work with you.
Yeah.
Because, unless you're frightened of something, it's not going to progress you in any way.
Yeah, I see.
So that sort of led me to some really, really amazing collaborations that I've been working on. And it's just like, okay, I want to work with this producer. I think that they're of a standard that I could really learn something from them. And it's absolutely imperative that you put yourself in rooms with people that you can learn from. And not be
like
afraid.
I have right now, by the way, just exactly,
Yeah.
right? Like I know very little about production, but I'm so glad that I can be learning from you.
Well, I mean, a lot of this, we've talked about emotions.
Yeah.
We talk about, but it's also important. And being open, not being ashamed of where you are,
Yeah.
because everybody starts somewhere as well.
Totally.
So unless you're willing to put yourself in a situation where there's obviously always the potential for embarrassment, but
Yeah, you got to be ready
guess.
to make a mistake and fall flat on your
in
face.
front of someone you think's really important or whatever,
Yeah.
or in front of a room of people, there's no other way to learn.
And chances are they're probably looking at you going like, oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, because
Yeah.
we all started somewhere.
yeah, exactly. No, that's awesome. And again, I'm very grateful that you are in the studio teaching all of us how you work. It's fantastic. And before we close up, I'd love to know what's coming up for you.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow.
Wow. Okay, so I've just been writing and writing. I have a beautiful album of my own.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know when it's coming up, but I'll chat to you about that as soon as I know.
Okay.
But I've been working on a collaborative EP with Sam Trevthick
Mm-hmm.
for the last year or so.
Sam, who? Sorry.
Trevthick,
And where
Yes.
can people find Sam?
the producer of Shapeshifter.
Right.
and-
Got it.
I think it went by Samba a lot
Right.
for a while.
Cool.
So we've got something really special coming later this year.
That's exciting.
I've also been collaborating with Dave Johnston, who's from Villainy,
Hey.
and he's got this
Right.
amazing project called Nightmare Cat, which
Right.
people should check out. He's like this crazy EDM producer. You'll love it.
Wow.
So we're I love collaborating with producers because you
Yeah.
can kind of just nerd out. And go,
Oh, totally.
sometimes, okay, so these projects are totally polar opposites. The ones with Sam is very like, what's deep and what's meaningful, and then with Dave we drink red wine and record ourselves saying timpani, 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 and try and make a drum out of it for 40 minutes, and it doesn't work. But that's coming out later this year as well. It's called Romanticish. Well, it will be called Romanticish.
Romanticish.
Yeah.
I love it. Red wine and drums that don't quite work. Oh, that's exciting. Oh, looking forward to that. I'm trying something new with my guests where at the end I ask them 3 questions before we close up. So
Curveball.
So quick fire questions. The first one's easy. Who are you listening to right now?
Oh, God. Kill J.
Kill J.
Yeah. Highly recommended.
Okay.
Listen to Propaganda.
Propaganda by
It's a
Kill
bit of
J.
a sick beat.
Ooh, nice. What is a song that last made you emotional or cry?
It was actually a track that an artist that I'm working with wrote.
Wow.
And
it's one of those amazing studio moments, I take it?
yeah,
Yeah.
we listened back to the full thing after we finished, and we basically made in a day
Right.
and listened back to it. And I'm not sure if it was exhaustion or the heat, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think we both cried listening
Wow.
back to it. It was just like,
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love stories like that.
yeah.
What's a song or the song that speaks to who you are the most? And by the way, these can also be your songs.
Who am I? I feel like who I am changes pretty frequently.
Totally.
You know?
No, that's a very valid answer because the answer that I would give is probably a little bit different as well.
Yeah.
It used to be Wheel by John Mayer,
Yeah.
and now I don't really know what it is.
Who are you now?
Yeah.
You're not
Who am
Wheel,
I?
if you're not Wheel by John Mayer anymore. Who are you?
Look in the mirror, I'm like, I don't recognize. Where's Wheel?
Okay. I feel like I want to be Propaganda by Kill J.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not actually that cool. So I'm probably Alter by Me,
That's that's awesome.
which is like a little bit sad, but a little bit like quirky.
That's cool. That's a super valid answer.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, this has been really fun, and
Yeah, it's been great.
I've learned heaps, and I'm really glad that we went into the side of the emotional stuff because again, it doesn't get talked about that much, and
Yeah, that's been my last whole week.
Yeah.
Is just really focusing on that. So that's sort of, I guess maybe that's why I focus so much on today. But this last week, I've been really experimenting with, okay, like how much do emotions affect the sessions?
yeah. I mean, the song I wrote with my friend was such an interesting time because I would go home and cry. You know?
Really? Yeah, because, yeah.
It was a process, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, like, and I feel like it was a delicate process as well. It was,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, and I had to, you know, message a few friends. I'm like, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now. But it was therapeutic, very therapeutic, because
Yeah.
we were both processing something
Yeah.
together, and that's how the song got written. And when you listen to the song, you can't hear any of the sadness. It's this happy, cheesy pop song.
I love that.
It's a happy pop song, but behind the scenes, there was a great amount of grief.
Wow.
And, you know, it was quite a healing process. But yeah, no, that needs to be.
And it should be therapeutic as
Yeah.
well. Like you should be able to healthily process your emotions through music and not, you know, at least try like half move on from whatever you've gone through after you've written about it.
Yeah, and the environment you're in has to kind of help facilitate that as well in a way. Well, thank you very much for being on the 80811 podcast. Where can people
Thank you for
find
having
you?
me. Check me out on Instagram, Missy Official and Z. Check me out on Spotify, just Missy.
Right.
Check me out on Facebook, Missy and Z, I think is my handle.
Right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
everywhere.
Everywhere. This has been the 80811 podcast. My name is Lochana, and thank you so much for listening. Can we play? Can we go out with listening to.
Do you want to hear the mixed version?
Yes.
And we can be like, oh.
Yes. Let's hear the mixed version. And
Mixed.
Simon, fade us out whenever you want. We're just gonna start jamming to this, and that's how we're gonna. Yeah.
Sick.
Mixed version.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear it.
We're all crazy.
Oh, I can hear harmonies that I didn't hear before. Like.
Yeah. Vocal transformer. It is in there. It was in there.
Maybe I didn't hear it with the headphones last time, so I'm noticing it now.
Better goes my heart to be. Take my trajectory.